acceptable offering to you, our rock and our Redeemer. This year will be the third year that Angela and I celebrate Advent with Jacob, and it kind of seems like it was just yesterday when we were making that announcement. Facebook was kind enough to remind us this week that, hey, 3 years ago you made this announcement. And I remember being here preaching to a, much more virtual crowd and saying, hey, I've got some good news for y'all. We've got baby. It's really been a heck of a journey, and it was a long journey getting there. Angela herself is adopted, and her parents said that what we went through was nothing like what they went through. Although we announced Jacob in 2020, our journey actually began in 2017 when we undertook our PRIDE training, the Parental Resources in Integration and Development Education. Not entirely sure what the acronym was, but it was a 4-weekend training session on how to raise adopted children and all of the ins and outs of the adoption process. It's not just, here's $100, we'll take that one. And the parents don't just show up with their baby in a wicker basket and that's it. Adoptions are much more open now, and we've had interactions with both of Jacob's birth parents and their families. When the time comes, he's going to know them. It's not going to be a surprise that he's adopted. But the whole thing started back in 2017. And then in 2018 and 2019, we had to take a little bit of time off as we tried IVF treatment to have our own biological child. Unfortunately, that did not work out, and a lot of that was the impetus for Angela's Hope Box program. In late 2019, we got back on the adoption process. We finished off our SAFE study, and I can't remember what that's an acronym for, but it's a one-on-one study, and they write this document, a mini novella, about Angela and I, about our relationship, about all of the things about our house even. There had to be a little house visit, and of course we're worried, oh no, if they see a speck of dust, are we going to be allowed to? It's fine, not until we have many specks of dust. And there was all of this work that went into finally being ready to go to adoption agencies and say, hey, can we go on your roster? So that when a family comes in and they are looking to give their child up for adoption, we might be presented, we might be matched. It was a long time, and it was a lot of, Tom, Angela, we have this parent, or we have these parents, we think you might be a match. Are you okay with us presenting you to them? And of course, there was always the follow-up phone call. Unfortunately, they've selected another parent, but we'll keep you on file. The phone call was an email. We went through that for what seemed like forever. Almost monthly, getting our hopes up, only to be let down again. It was a long, long wait. Until finally, September 2020, Angela calls me from work. She's crying. I'm thinking, oh no, she just got fired. Oh no. No, I couldn't quite see the face, so I didn't know those tears were tears of joy. But we got picked. When she finally calmed down enough to actually put coherent words together. I checked the email, and sure enough, we had been selected. This thing was going ahead. By the way, it's September now, the due date's the middle of October. Get ready. Yeah. It was a long time waiting. Kind of like it's been a long time waiting for the kingdom of heaven to come. Jesus came to us some 2,000 years ago, promising that this kingdom was near, promising this kingdom was at hand. The Apostle Paul, in many of his writings, wrote as if that coming was imminent. The letter wasn't even going to make it out the door. The ink wasn't even going to dry on the page before Jesus returned. Of course, time went on, and it wasn't quite so imminent. And it wasn't quite so imminent. And now, here we are 2,000 years later, waiting, wondering, is it ever going to happen? Kind of like how Angela and I were waiting and wondering, is this adoption ever going to happen? Now, maybe you haven't gone through adoption, but I know that this congregation has experienced several long waiting times. And one of them that I think we still have a fair number of people who might remember this firsthand was adding the extension onto this building. For those of you who don't know, the building began as this sanctuary, the narthex, and that was pretty much it, right? A little bit upstairs, and that was pretty much it. It wasn't until, basement as well. Right, I never remember the basement. Never go into the basement. The extension was added on. Now, people started planning in 1980 for this extension. It was a fairly major undertaking, wasn't it? You needed to make sure everything was lined up. Especially that one thing that is always the big concern. The money. How are we going to pay for this? Years went by before the shovel even broke ground. Now, from when I was asking around and from what I could see, we put that date sometime in 1985. Does anyone want to challenge that date and say it was another date? Does anyone remember it was anything other than 1985? All right, the crack research team. John, did you have another date? 86 is when the cornerstone was laid. That'd be the end of it. Okay. John Lazell, did you have another date, or?
It was in 1986.
It was in 1986 that you broke ground.
No.
That you finished. I'm just wondering when you broke ground, because everyone had been spending a lot of time like, we're going to build this, we're going to build this, we're going to build this. We need money, and 86 is when it was done, but 85 is when you started. It's that first tangible sign, and you're waiting for that first tangible sign. And I'm sure many people were wondering, when is this going to finish? When are we going to have this beautiful extension? We've seen all of the concepts, we've seen all of the plans. When is it going to be a reality? Just like Angela and I were wondering, when is this child going to be a reality? And just like followers of Jesus everywhere are wondering, when is Jesus coming again? When is this kingdom community of heaven going to be made real? And this is not something that recently started. This is something they were wondering since day one. Our reading today takes place in the temple in Jerusalem. Now, according to the Gospel of Matthew, which is going to be our main gospel for the next year, according to the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus visited Jerusalem once, one time only. So this is the end of his ministry. He's in the temple. All of his followers are saying, look at this temple, isn't it so beautiful? Jesus says, it's going to get torn down. What do you mean? We just rebuilt this temple. What do you mean it's going to get torn down? It's going to be torn down, and there's going to be some difficult times. But don't worry, when those difficult times come, know that I am with you. Know that I will give you what you need to get through these difficult times. Well, when, Jesus? When are these difficult times going to come? And Jesus answers with the first line of our reading today. Nobody knows the time. Nobody knows the hour. Now, in Greek, there are two terms for time. There's chronos and kairos. Chronos is more what we think of as the order of time. Hours, the days, the weeks, the months, the years. That's the chronos time. The kairos time is more what we think of as the right time, the appropriate time. I can't say, all right, on May 1st, start planting all of your all of your plants outside. I can't say that because I'm obviously not a gardener, but I also can't say that because we don't know what the weather's going to be like. Maybe a couple of weeks earlier would be a good time, a kairos time. Maybe it's going to be a couple of weeks later. It would be a good time, a kairos time. Jesus is saying here that the chronos time, we don't know. The kairos time, though, is something that we live into by following Jesus and by becoming citizens of this kingdom community of heaven. Jesus said in what he said today that the time will come, it'll be like it was in Noah's day when the flood came. Everyone was having banquets and parties and weddings. Everyone was just carrying on as normal up until the day it came. There aren't going to be any big signs. There's not going to be all of this scary stuff. It's going to happen when the time is ready. The kairos time is when living in this kingdom community of heaven is just commonplace to everyone. Jesus also says that some people will be saved and some people will not. Now, in our United Church background, we have a little bit of trouble with that. We don't like thinking that some are going to be saved and some are not. So let me put it to you a different way. The people who are living in the kingdom community of heaven, the people who are living and trying to live with justice and mercy and humility, with faith, with hope, with love, they are the ones who are going to be able to adapt to this new way of living so much quicker, so much easier, because it's going to be the way they live their lives. It's going to be second nature. And everyone else, it's going to be difficult. And there may be some people who say, no, I'm not going to live that way. Even though it's a way that is better for everyone, I'm not going to live that way. And they'll be taken care of. We don't need to worry about that. All we need to worry about is that we are living into this kingdom community of heaven. We are living in ways of justice and mercy and humility. We are living to make a place for all people, that will welcome all people, that will provide food and water and shelter for all people. Jesus says also that it's going to come unexpectedly, like a thief in the night. It's not going to be something that's going to have a lot of heads up. It's going to come very suddenly, very unexpectedly. So be ready. And how do we be ready for it? We live into it. We start now living into this new way of living. We can wait for all of this coming that is coming. We can wait with hope, knowing that Jesus has said, it is coming. And however long it takes, we will live as if it's already here. We will live with justice and mercy and humility. And working towards these things is what we've always done. With Angela and I, it was always just being ready for that child. Already planning, okay, this could happen very quickly. What room is going to be the child's room? How are we going to prepare for the child's room? Where are we getting the crib? What are we doing about change table? What are we doing about diapers? Reusable, disposable? It's a little more complex now than it was however many years ago. And in the same way, the community here got ready. There were buy-a-brick programs to help fund the cost of this extension. There were community barbecues, chicken barbecues, which was a great way not only to fundraise, but also to welcome more people into our community here. And there was all sorts of other fundraising and committee work, but people were always working towards that goal until finally, as we said in 1986, there was that long-awaited dedication ceremony. Because the work was done. Because even when it seemed like, how are we going to make this happen? We persevered in hope. And we went on. Just like with COVID. When are we ever going to open? ever seen here. Thank you to everyone who showed up to help decorate and helped us in spirit and with prayers in our decorating to make this place a place where people can get ready for the mystery that's coming, that we wait for in hope. Not a fragile wish, but a sure conviction, knowing that despite what we see, that kingdom community of heaven is coming. And we are ready to put in the work. Jesus' reign will reach us when we are ready. And how do we get ready for that reign to come? We get ready through our own personal works of piety. Things like prayer, reading scripture, getting together for coffee time and talking about our faith lives in small groups, talking about our lives, about what's going on. But also in our works of mercy, when we extend a hand to help other people, whether that's service to the marginalized here in our local community, whether that's helping mission and service or regeneration or another program, whether that's even just offering a ride to church to someone who otherwise might not be able to get here. All of these ways are ways that we get ready for the kingdom community of heaven, are ways that we make it real. It shapes us to be citizens. But as we become citizens, it draws even nearer, it draws even closer, and more people become citizens, and more people are shaped and draw closer. And we're going to spend Advent really focusing on that, on getting ready for the kingdom community of heaven, getting ready for the arrival of that mysterious king, that king who did not come with an army or with gold or with a palace, but that baby born in a barn, that simplest of births that has shaped the world in such a fundamental, such an incredible way. And we know just as that baby came some 2,000 years ago, we know that Jesus' reign will reach us when we are ready. And for that, we can offer thanks. Let me pray for you. God of Advent preparation, we give thanks that you give us plenty of reminders in Scripture, reminders in our everyday lives, that Jesus' reign will reach us. And we know sometimes we're in a rush, and we want to get there right now. We want to skip the preparation and get right to the final celebration. God, in this time, help us to respond to your gracious promise, that we might live into that wonderful, that glorious kingdom community of heaven, where we are all equal, where we are all servants to one another. The world may be ready and made more ready to see that kairos time, that right time when your Son will return to us. In Jesus' name we pray.